You keep saying tomorrow like it's a real place, like it's a door you can walk through. But you already know the truth. Tomorrow is where you bury things. Tomorrow is where your promises go to die, quietly, politely, without a scene. And the worst part isn't that you didn't start, it's that you started to recognize the sound of your own voice as a lie. You make vows with the same mouth that breaks them, and somewhere deep inside, something watches you do it and stops trusting you. So, you call it laziness, you call it weakness, you call it lack of discipline. You try punishment, you try pressure, you try turning your life into a checklist made of steel. But the harder you push, the stranger it gets. Because it doesn't feel like you're fighting a task, it feels like you're fighting yourself. Like there's a hand inside your mind, calmly pulling you back whenever you get close to change. Like there's a quiet intelligence in you that knows how to derail you without leaving fingerprints. And that's the part no one wants to admit. It's not chaos, it's not random, it's patterned, it's precise, it has timing. It waits until the exact moment you're about to cross a threshold, then it releases the fog. It floods your body with heaviness. It whispers the same spell in a new voice. Later, not now, not today. It doesn't scream, it doesn't argue, it simply dulls you, gently, until you forget what you wanted, until the edge of urgency is sanded down, until you can tolerate another day of almost. Jung warned about this exact nightmare. What you refuse to face does not disappear. It goes underground. It becomes autonomous. It starts living your life for you. And one day you wake up and call it fate, when it was only the unconscious, unchallenged sitting in the driver's seat. Not a demon, not bad luck, not how you are, just unseen forces running their old programs through your hands, your habits, your hours. Discipline is not the ability to become cruel. Real discipline is the ability to see what is resisting you without flinching. Because procrastination isn't just a behavior, it's a signal, a symptom, a protective spell cast by a part of you that learned long ago that effort leads to pain, that visibility leads to shame, that trying leads to humiliation. And now it would rather keep you starving in familiar misery than risk you stepping into unfamiliar freedom. It would rather keep you sedated in the comfort of delay than awake inside the terror of possibility. Your mind does not move like a clean machine. It moves like an animal that remembers. It moves like a nervous system that has been trained by past experiences you might not even consciously recall. You can sit down and make a plan, but your body will vote first. It will scan the next action and decide in an instant, safe or dangerous, light or heavy, reward or threat. And after that decision is made, your rational mind becomes an obedient storyteller. It explains what you're doing as if it was chosen. I'm tired. I'll do it later. I need more information. Today isn't the right day. The story changes, but the pattern stays. This is the pleasure principle at work. Ancient, brutal, efficient. The nervous system doesn't care about your 5-year vision. It cares about immediate comfort. It cares about avoiding uncertainty. And if the action in front of you feels like strain, pressure, exposure, or possible failure, it gets marked as unpleasant. Once it's marked, resistance doesn't feel like resistance. It feels like not now. It feels like heaviness. It feels like fog. It feels like a sudden hunger for anything easier. And your brain, your loyal survival machine, starts offering you exits. Small ones at first, innocent ones. Just check your phone. Just get a snack. Just watch one thing. Just organize first. And before you realize it, you're 2 hours deep, numb and angry, trying to remember where your intention went. Watch yourself in the small moments, because the small moments reveal the architecture of the prison. The alarm rings. You said you'd get up, but your hand moves before your mind finishes speaking. You reach for the snooze as if it's not a choice. You open the laptop to work, and somehow your fingers open the familiar app instead, as if relief is a reflex. You think about running, and instead of motivation, you feel an invisible weight in your limbs. You tell yourself you'll start the moment you feel ready, but ready never arrives, because readiness is not the goal of the unconscious. Safety is. Safety is the real God most people worship, even as they claim to want freedom. Safety is why you stay in the room you've outgrown. Safety is why you keep your goals vague, because vague goals can't expose you. Safety is why you keep preparing instead of building. Preparing feels productive without requiring risk. Safety is why you polish the fantasy version of yourself instead of meeting the real one on the page, in the gym, in the work, in the awkward first attempts where you are undeniably human. And beneath the pleasure principle, there's something deeper, something Jung would call the shadow. Not evil, not a monster, a protector, a wounded guardian, the part of you that carries everything you learned to hide: fear, sensitivity, hunger for approval, terror of judgment, memories of being laughed at, moments of failure that branded you. The shadow doesn't sabotage you because it hates you. It sabotages you because it remembers. It remembers what it felt like to reach and be punished, to try and be shamed, to be excited and then crushed. So now when you stand at the edge of something important, it rises like smoke and wraps the moment in resistance. The shadow is not always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a simple mood. Sometimes it looks like, I just don't feel like it. Sometimes it looks like, I can't focus. Sometimes it looks like, I'm not in the right state. But watch the timing. It arrives at the threshold. It arrives at the moment you would become visible, to yourself or to others. It arrives when your life might actually change, which is the one thing the unconscious will treat as danger if change has ever meant pain. Resistance has many disguises. Sometimes it's procrastination that feels reasonable. Sometimes it's a sudden exhaustion that appears only when the work is about to begin. Sometimes it's perfectionism, endless preparation, endless research, endless planning, anything except exposure. Sometimes it's a strange emotional numbness that makes everything feel pointless. And sometimes it's the most seductive disguise of all: I'll do it tomorrow. That sentence sounds harmless, but it is often the shadow speaking in a tone you'll accept. Because the shadow is smart. It doesn't try to stop you with a wall. It stops you with a pillow. It softens you. It comforts you. It lulls you into delay. It wraps avoidance in soothing language until you can't tell whether you're being kind to yourself or quietly erased. It tells you deserve rest when what you're really doing is hiding. It tells you need clarity when what you really need is courage. It tells you need motivation when what you really need is a smaller door. If you've ever tried to begin and stopped in the first minute, it probably wasn't because you lacked capability. It was because a quiet voice underneath the surface whispered, "What if you fail again? What if you look stupid? What if you quit like before? What if you discover you're not special, just ordinary, just human, just imperfect?" The shadow would rather keep you in the dream of your potential than force you to face the reality of your limits. Because if you never fully try, you never fully fail. That's the unconscious bargain. It protects your image by sacrificing your future. And that bargain is older than you think. It starts early. It starts in classrooms where you raised your hand and got laughed at. It starts in homes where mistakes weren't treated as learning, but as proof. It starts in moments where you tried with your whole chest and someone cut you down. The psyche takes that pain and turns it into a strategy. Don't fully commit. Don't expose the soft parts. Keep one foot out the door. Leave yourself an escape. That way, if it hurts, you can tell yourself it didn't count. But that strategy has a price. A slow price, a silent price, because a life lived half committed becomes a life half lived. And you can survive that for a while. You can even function. You can be fine. You can hold a job. You can smile in photos. You can make plans. But at night, when the noise drops, you feel it. The weight of unfinished lives, the pressure of the person you keep postponing, the grief of knowing you're not tired from doing too much, you're tired from resisting what you know you're here to do. So discipline cannot be built by war. You can win a war for a week, a month, but not forever. Eventually, the parts of you you're suppressing will revolt. Jung's terrifying truth is that what gets denied does not disappear. It goes underground. It becomes autonomous. It starts living your life for you. And one day you wake up and call it fate when it was only the unconscious, unchallenged, sitting in the driver's seat. Not a demon, not bad luck, not how you are, just unseen forces running their old programs through your hands, your habits, your hours. Discipline is not the ability to become cruel. Real discipline is the ability to see what is resisting you without flinching. Because procrastination isn't just a behavior, it's a signal, a symptom, a protective spell cast by a part of you that learned long ago that effort leads to pain, that visibility leads to shame, that trying leads to humiliation. And now it would rather keep you starving in familiar misery than risk you stepping into unfamiliar freedom. It would rather keep you sedated in the comfort of delay than awake inside the terror of possibility. Your mind does not move like a clean machine. It moves like an animal that remembers. It moves like a nervous system that has been trained by past experiences you might not even consciously recall. You can sit down and make a plan, but your body will vote first. It will scan the next action and decide in an instant, safe or dangerous, light or heavy, reward or threat. And after that decision is made, your rational mind becomes an obedient storyteller. It explains what you're doing as if it was chosen. I'm tired. I'll do it later. I need more information. Today isn't the right day. The story changes, but the pattern stays. This is the pleasure principle at work. Ancient, brutal, efficient. The nervous system doesn't care about your 5-year vision. It cares about immediate comfort. It cares about avoiding uncertainty. And if the action is also a boundary, a signal to the shadow, this time is not negotiable. Not because you're forcing yourself, but because you're honoring something. When you light the candle, when you press play on that one track, when you sit in that chair, your body recognizes the doorway. It knows what comes next. You reduce uncertainty, and uncertainty is one of the shadow's favorite hiding places. Finally, you aim beyond productivity. You aim at individuation, Jung's word for becoming whole, because the real reason discipline collapses is not time management, it's identity conflict. One part of you wants growth, and another part is terrified of what growth will cost. Success brings exposure. Progress brings responsibility. Change brings the end of excuses. And some part of you would rather stay potential than become real, because real can be judged. Potential is safe. Potential is untouchable. Potential can be imagined as perfect. But reality is messy. Reality has numbers. Reality has feedback. Reality has days where you are ordinary. And if your identity is built on being special in your mind, reality becomes a threat. So the shadow protects you by keeping you in planning, in dreaming, in almost. And here's a darker truth. Sometimes you are not afraid of failing. Sometimes you are afraid of succeeding, because success changes your social world. Success exposes you. Success demands you maintain it. Success makes people expect things from you. Success removes the comforting excuse that you haven't started yet. If you succeed, you can't hide behind potential anymore. You have to live as the person you said you were. And if you've never felt safe being seen, the shadow will treat success like a predator. So you don't chase perfection, you practice return. You will fail, you will drift, you will have days where you disappear into old patterns, but instead of turning that into a verdict, I'm hopeless, you turn it into information. You ask, what triggered the avoidance? What did I feel right before I ran? What pain did this resistance try to save me from? This is how you bring the unconscious into consciousness. This is how fate becomes choice. And that's the real shift. Not, I'll never procrastinate again. That's fantasy. The shift is, I can see it. I can name it. I can catch it earlier. I can recognize the fog as a tactic, not a truth. I can say in the moment, this is the shadow trying to protect me. And once you can say that, you're no longer possessed by it. You're in relationship with it. Because possession is what happens when an unconscious complex takes the wheel. Jung wrote about this in different language, but you've lived it. The feeling of watching yourself do the thing you swore you wouldn't do. The feeling of being hijacked. That's not because you're weak. That's because a part of you is unintegrated. And when it's triggered, it becomes you. The solution isn't more shame. Shame feeds it. The solution is consciousness, contact, integration. And one day, something shifts. Not loudly, not like a movie climax, quietly. You do a small thing you usually avoid and the world doesn't end. You survive the discomfort. You survive the imperfection. You survive the exposure. And your nervous system records that like a new law. We can do this. We can live through this. We don't have to hide. At first, it's almost disappointing. You expect fireworks. You expect to feel like a new person instantly. But what you feel is simpler, cleaner, less dramatic. You feel solid. You feel like your spine exists again. And then you notice something. The dread you used to feel before starting is smaller, not gone, smaller. The threshold is lower. The fog takes longer to arrive. And when it arrives, it's easier to see through. That's the moment discipline stops being a whip. It becomes a gravity. You start craving the feeling of keeping a promise, not a grand promise, but a small one. And you realize procrastination was never rest. It was a slow poison. It was carrying unfinished lives inside your chest. Discipline becomes addictive because it feels lighter than avoidance. It feels like breathing again. And breathing is addictive. Relief is addictive. Integrity is addictive. Not the performative kind of discipline where you punish yourself into productivity, but the quiet one where you stop betraying yourself, where you stop leaving your future self to clean up your mess, where you stop creating broken promises like broken glass and then wondering why your feet are bleeding. So, here's the dark truth and the hopeful one, both at once. If you do not face what's driving you, it will drive you, and you will call it personality, you will call it fate, you will call it bad luck, but it will simply be the shadow, unseen, unintegrated, writing your days for you. And fate is not romantic when it's just avoidance with a different name. Fate is not mystical when it's a nervous system stuck in an old loop. Fate is what happens when you keep refusing to meet the part of you that is afraid, the part of you that learned to equate effort with danger, the part of you that would rather numb you than let you risk being seen. So here's the challenge. Simple, sharp, immediate. Don't leave this as a script you admire. Don't let it become another video you watch and forget. Today, choose one action so small your shadow cannot argue with it. One breadcrumb, 1 minute, one sentence, one stretch, one page opened, one message sent. Then mark it so your unconscious sees proof. Then reward it so your body learns safety. Then return tomorrow, not because you feel inspired, but because you're done living under unseen rule. And when you drift, because you will, don't dramatize it. Don't turn it into identity. Don't give the shadow the satisfaction of your despair. Return. Return like it's sacred. Return like you're building a bridge out of your own ruins. Return like the act of coming back is the discipline. Because that's what discipline really is. Not intensity, not perfection, not punishment. It's return. It's the refusal to disappear. And if you want to go even deeper, ask the question that cuts through everything. What do you get from staying stuck? Not consciously, unconsciously. What does procrastination protect? What does it preserve? Does it preserve your image? Does it preserve your excuses? Does it preserve your membership in a life that expects nothing of you? Does it preserve your ability to say, I could have, instead of risking, I did? Be honest. The shadow feeds on dishonesty. It grows in half-truths. Maybe you procrastinate because finishing would force you to judge your work, and you've made judgment feel like death. Maybe you procrastinate because starting would prove you're a beginner, and your pride can't tolerate being seen as small. Maybe you procrastinate because if you actually changed, someone in your life would become uncomfortable, and your psyche learned early that other people's discomfort is dangerous. Maybe you procrastinate because achievement would require you to outgrow the version of you that others recognize, and you're afraid of what you'll lose. This is individuation. This is where discipline becomes spiritual, not because it's soft, but because it's real. It's not about optimizing your day, it's about integrating your mind. It's about turning to what you've been avoiding, not with violence, but with unwavering attention. So, if you want a new life, stop negotiating with tomorrow. Tomorrow is not a plan, it's a graveyard. Choose today. Choose the smallest act of return you can complete without drama, and do it now, before the fog slides back under the door. Do it while the part of you that's awake is still awake. Do it before the old loop tightens. Do it before you forget again. Put the shoes on, open the file, write the first ugly line, set the timer, stand up, move your body, make one mark of proof, then let your nervous system feel the quiet shock of it. You did what you said. And when you feel the urge to make it bigger, to become heroic, to declare a new identity overnight, don't. That urge is often another trick, another way the shadow turns discipline into a performance so it can sabotage you with exhaustion later. Stay small, stay consistent, stay honest. Build the trail, build the proof, build the trust. Because the unconscious doesn't change through speeches, it changes through repeated experience. And repeated experience becomes belief, and belief becomes identity, and identity becomes gravity. Until one day you wake up and realize you didn't become disciplined by fighting yourself. You became disciplined by meeting yourself. The frightened parts, the ashamed parts, the parts that hide, the parts that freeze. You met them and you stopped treating them like enemies. You stopped trying to dominate them. You led them slowly into a life that no longer required hiding. That's when the fog loses its power, not because it never comes, but because you recognize it. You see it as weather, not destiny. You see the shadow's hand and you don't let it sign your name anymore. So take the smallest step, mark it, reward it, return. And if you're serious, if you're done making promises that rot, then make this next part non-negotiable. Choose your breadcrumb for today, right now, not later. Write it down. Say it out loud. Make it so small failure would be almost ridiculous. Then do it immediately, before your mind can decorate the delay with excuses, before the shadow can put you back to sleep. Because the person you keep waiting to become is not waiting for your motivation, they're waiting for your courage to return. And the return starts now.